I've made the whole world laugh for 40 years. But there's a truth I've kept hidden for 24 years. A truth that, if you're a Mr. Bean fan, you might never forgive me for. Everyone believed my marriage to Sunetra Sastry was peaceful, perfect, happy, a fairy tale between an eccentric comedian and a gentle woman working behind the scenes. But have you ever wondered, why did a 24-year marriage fall apart in just a few months? Why did the woman who stood by me before I was even famous disappear from my life without a single word of blame? Why is it that an actor who lives to make the world laugh
Mr. Bean goes around the country actually claiming to be Mr.
couldn't manage to keep a smile on his own wife's face? And more importantly, why did I, Rowan Atkinson, become the worst kind of man without even realizing it? What made me that way? Do you want to know what happened that night? The night Sunetra looked at me with nothing but hatred in her eyes? Do you want to know the real reason why the British press called me the worst husband in the UK in 2015? Do you want to know what really happened between me and the woman nearly 30 years younger than me? I'm going to tell everything. No hiding, no excuses, no jokes. Because at 70, I've come to understand that some truths, if left unspoken, will eat away at you for the rest of your life. The only question is, do you have the courage to listen to this story until the very last word? I still remember very clearly the first day I met Sunetra. It was a cold day in the late 1980s, around the end of 1986 at the BBC studios in London, where we were filming Blackadder 2. Back then, I wasn't Mr. Bean. I was just Rowan Atkinson, a comedian trying to keep up with the frantic pace of BBC productions. I walked into the makeup room like I did every day, script in hand, still thinking about a scene. And then I saw her. Sunetra Sastry, the girl with deep eyes, black hair, and a calm exterior that somehow lit up the whole room with a strange kind of glow. She was a makeup artist for the BBC, working with the crew. Honestly, I had met plenty of beautiful women on set, but Sunetra had a quiet kind of charm. She didn't try to get anyone's attention. She just worked, diligently and silently, and that very silence made people want to be near her. I cracked a few jokes. She smiled. And the way she smiled made me feel lighter. On set, everyone laughed because of me. But Sunetra was the first person who made me laugh just by being myself. Do you understand the difference? Someone laughs because you're Mr. Funny Guy, but someone else laughs because they see the real you. Awkward, tired, a bit silly, and always hiding fear behind the jokes. In the weeks that followed, I started arriving at the makeup room a few minutes earlier. I'd pretend to ask about foundation, lighting, or how to prepare makeup for the character. But really, I just wanted to hear her speak. Sunetra didn't talk much, but when she did, she was direct and to the point. And I, someone who always used words to mask his emotions, found myself drawn to that clarity. By 1987, we began having dinner after shoots. Not fancy Hollywood dates, just small spots in London, where I could sit down, stop being the world's clown, and go back to being an ordinary man with an ordinary woman. I remember one time she looked at me and said, "Rowan, you smile more on the inside than you do on the outside." I was speechless. She was the first to ever see that in me. From 1987 to 1989, our love grew slowly, but genuinely. I didn't fall for Sunetra like a lightning strike. I loved her the way you come to love a home, stepping in gradually, and one day realizing you never want to leave. In the evenings at my small flat, We'd watch TV, eat cold meals, and talk about things I'd never told even my closest friends. She told me about her childhood, her Anglo-Indian roots, and how she often felt like she never fully belonged anywhere. I listened and was surprised to realize I felt the same. I've always belonged to the stage, but nowhere once the lights went off. Then one evening in September 1989, I brought her to meet some friends after a show. Everyone liked her. She was still quiet, still reserved, but the way she listened made people trust her. I sat next to her and, for the first time in years, felt like I didn't need to perform anymore. And so in February 1990, we got married. It wasn't a loud or flashy wedding, just family, a few close friends, and an innocent belief that if our love was real enough, life would be kind to us. At the time, I thought Sunetra was the only peaceful place I could hold on to, in the middle of a career blowing up like a balloon. And I believe she thought she could live beside a man who made the world laugh. But there was something I didn't see. Do you know what the most dangerous thing in a marriage is? It's not fighting. It's not betrayal. It's when two people start living in two different rhythms, but keep telling themselves, everything's fine. And if you're wondering, when did that storm begin? When did Sunetra start fading from my life? And why did the man who made the world laugh make his wife cry in silence? Press 1 to find out. I still remember very clearly that winter night in 1990, just 2 months after our wedding. It was so quiet I could hear the wind scratching against the glass. Sunetra was sitting by the bed, her eyes red from crying. I had just returned from a commercial shoot in Manchester, 3 hours later than planned. At the time, I just smiled and said, "I'm sorry, you know how it is, work." But I didn't realize that moment was the first crack. A crack that would grow into a bottomless rift in our marriage. In 1995, I began filming a new season of Mr. Bean. My schedule was packed. Some days I'd leave the house at 4 a.m. and return at 11 p.m. Sunetra looked at me as if I were just a guest renting a room for the night. And I started avoiding conversations with her because I was afraid. Afraid I'd hear the questions I didn't want to answer. Do you still love me? Does this family still matter to you? Why were those questions so terrifying? Because I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answers. I remember January 20th, 1997, our daughter Lily's birthday. I had promised I would be there. All week long, I told everyone that day was reserved for her. But one call from the BBC crew pulled me away. I left home at 9 a.m., they said, just 1 hour. It turned into 10. That night, when I came back, the cake had been blown out, the party cleaned up, and Sunetra said only 3 words. She waited, Rowan. I took off my coat, stood in the kitchen, and realized for the first time that her eyes no longer held love, only disappointment. And I asked myself, when a man loses the trust of his wife, what's left for him to hold on to? But that was only the second crack. In 2001, I fell into a strange kind of pressure, the pressure to maintain the global image of Mr. Bean. That image became a mask I couldn't take off. The more famous I became, the smaller I felt inside. And while the world celebrated me, Sunetra was the one who witnessed the trembling, irritable, cold version of me after endless days on set. There were nights I came home and spoke to her in Mr. Bean's voice. Not as a joke, not in character, but as if I had forgotten my own voice. Sunetra sat there, hands trembling, and asked me, "Rowan, are you okay?" I just said, "Yeah, I think so." But deep down, I knew I was slipping away from real life. Then, in 2002, we had our first major argument. It wasn't about infidelity. It wasn't about money. It was because I was no longer the Rowan Atkinson she had fallen in love with. "You're never here," she said. "Even when you're home, your mind is somewhere else." She was right. I had been in a million places, but never truly beside my wife. But the tragedy didn't come from the arguments. It came from the silence. In 2004, during a film tour in Berlin, I realized I had forgotten our wedding anniversary. 2 weeks after I got back, Sunetra brought it up. She said it in a tone so calm it was frightening, the calm of someone who had stopped hoping. I tried to make up for it, planned a fancy dinner in London. But through the entire meal, she never looked me in the eye. No complaints, no anger. Just nothing left to say. Do you know what's scarier than anger? The silence of someone who once loved you with all their heart. In 2006, the crack turned into a void. We lived in the same house but no longer lived together. I worked more and more to avoid facing the truth, and the more I ran, the more I slowly killed the marriage. Sunetra became increasingly exhausted, from raising 2 children, from her job, from having to protect her husband's image. Do you know what haunts me the most to this day? In 2006, the doctor said Sunetra was suffering from stress-induced exhaustion. I heard that news from the housekeeper, not from her. Not because she didn't want to tell me,